Excessive salt intake accelerates arterial stiffness, basically arterial aging in children and young adults. These are the results of a cross-sectional study conducted by Elaine Urbina's group, published in the Journal of Hypertension. In this study, basically, they measured both dietary sodium intake, so grams per day of sodium, and sodium load, basically is milligram of sodium for kilocalorie per day. And they measure not only the salt intake by doing food diaries in 723 children and teenagers aged between 10 and 24 years, 35% male, 59% non-white, and 31% with type 2 diabetes. But they also measure three measurements of arterial stiffness: the brachial distensibility index, the pulse wave velocity, the carotid femoral pulse wave velocity. Basically, it's the gold standard to measure arterial elasticity. And then augmentation index, there is another measurement. This is measuring with the echo Doppler, so on the carotid and femoral artery, and then you have the measurements and you calculate how quick the arterial wave goes from the carotid to the femoral artery. The augmentation index stuff is done with a tonometer on the brachial artery and the shape of the wave. Now, what they found is that both dietary sodium and sodium load were associated with an increased arterial stiffness. Both brachial distensibility decreased and pulse wave velocity increased with both sodium intake and sodium load. Bottom line, this study strongly suggests, of course, it's cross-sectional, but strongly suggests that consuming too much salt, even in kids, has detrimental effects in accelerating arterial stiffness. That is a major risk factor for the development of hypertension. And because hypertension is linked with coronary heart disease and heart failure and stroke through different mechanisms. It's not only the blood pressure, but when you have stiffer arteries, these are more prone to break, and so you have this microinfarction, especially, for example, in the white matter of the brain that is driving vascular dementia and probably Alzheimer's disease, because this leakage of red blood cells in the brain is activating cell senescence and inflammation, neuroinflammation, that is driving then the accumulation of beta amyloid and tau. So moms and kids, try to limit the consume of salt in your diet. That's the important message. So now, where do you find this excess salt? So a lot of people think salt is just the table salt that you use, to dress your salads or your everything. You put salt on your food. No, the data, as I explain in my book, The Path to Longevity, is 70 to 80% of the salt most people consume every day is hidden in processed and packaged foods. For example, industrial breads, cheeses, processed meats, potato chips, and other type of salty snacks, sauces, spreads, and even breakfast cereals contain a lot of hidden salt. Just for example, a small bag of chips contain between 170 and 210 milligrams of sodium. 2 slices of one of the typical industrial breads contain up to 270 milligrams of sodium. One serving of cottage cheese may contain 450 milligrams, and one can of one of these commercial vegetable soup can hide 640 milligrams of sodium. So please be careful, read the labels of your food and limit salty cheeses and all the other foods that are very salty, because again, this is increasing blood pressure, and in the study we just discussed is promoting arterial stiffness even in children. Thank you for your attention. As always,